guys for coming today. We're going to talk about creating a successful business on Google Play. So my name is Kevin Fives, and I'm on the Google Play team here in New York.
Hi everyone, my name is George Abdi, and I'm also on the Google Play team based here in New York.
And so this is day 2 of the conference. I think we're the last speakers before Kevin wraps up. And so when George and I were discussing what topic might be relevant for this time slot and also for you guys, we decided that we wanted to talk about something which you haven't heard too much about. And that's really how to take great apps and turn them into great businesses. So I think we've learned a lot. My colleague Roman was up here. There were a lot of other great speakers yesterday talking about design, talking about how to improve performance. We want to talk about how you take the app once it's finished and turn it into a business. So we're going to do a couple things. First, we're going to give you some updates on the platform. So we'll tell you what we're doing to help you take apps and turn them into businesses. Second, we want to give you some actionable tips. We want you to walk away from this session better able to make a business from the Google Play platform. And then third, George is going to try to share some very relevant case studies of great apps that have turned into great businesses. So let's get started. Okay. So this is a number that we announced in the number is between Google I/O 2013 and Google I/O 2014. We paid out $5 billion to developers. And that's really thanks to you guys. So thank you very much for building great apps. And while you guys do the great work of building apps, at the end of the day, it's up to the user to decide what to purchase. And for anyone who's trying to sell an app in the store, you know it can be hard to convince the user to click that buy button. And so when you think about it, like what makes a user make a purchase decision? So it could be a couple things, right? It could be he wants to unlock premium content. He wants to unlock a new level in the game, or maybe he just wants to unlock the premium version of the app compared to the standard version. And that's really how we think of our role as a platform. We think that's our responsibility. So really 2 things here. So the first is we want to make sure that when a user does decide to buy, that the purchase flow is as seamless as possible. And then the second thing is we want to make sure that you as developers have access to buyers no matter where they are. And that's really the key message here. It's no matter where they are. So let's talk quickly about the thought process that we see for a lot of top apps that turn into successful businesses. So generally we see a similar pattern approach. So oftentimes developers start in a local market. So it's a market that's familiar to them. It's a problem that they understand well. And they build a good solution for that specific problem. And then from there, maybe they go to similar markets. So maybe they go to the UK. Or maybe they go to a market that speaks a different language like Germany, but has very similar needs. And then from there, maybe they go to an even more distant market. Right? So this is a market with a much different culture. This is a market with languages that are much different. And then before they know it, they're a global business. Right? And they have buyers in 20, 30, maybe 50 different countries. And what we've seen is developers who focus on international growth are the most successful developers on the platform. It's really the best way to take advantage of what we do and the scale that we have. So just to sort of repeat this number, developers whose sales are primarily international are 2.5 times more successful than those that focus just on domestic markets. And the other thing is that this trend is continuing. So the number of developers whose sales are primarily international continues to grow. So we saw 38% year-over-year growth. And that's something that we want all of you to take advantage of. So the next question is, okay, so what are we doing as a platform to help you? So the first thing that you guys will know is all that you need to do is publish your app to the store, and you have access to users in 190 countries. We have 140 countries where you can sell the app, and 65 countries where you can tailor your pricing. But one thing that you learn as you start to think of this, and as you start to think globally about your business, is that there's no silver bullet for payments. So in the US, credit cards are the preferred method of payment. It makes sense, right? When you want to purchase something through Google Play, you enter your credit card information. But in a place like India, credit card penetration is 9%. In a place like Japan, which is a fantastic market, direct carrier billing is their primary payment. So direct carrier billing, for those of you who don't know, you essentially, at the end of the month, when you get your phone bill, any charges that you make it through Google Play show up on your bill. In other places like Germany, PayPal is very popular. In places like Taiwan and Hong Kong, the primary method of payment isn't credit cards, it's actually gift cards. So they buy gift cards and they spend that money on the platform. So we're trying to do our part to make sure that local users can become local buyers. So we launched gift cards in 13 countries. We're trying to target the most relevant countries first. Direct carrier billing is now available to half of users across the globe, and we're trying to continue to get that number up. And PayPal is launched in 13 countries. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the PayPal integration, you can now use PayPal with our in-app billing service to purchase goods or to buy subscriptions. So what's the effect of this? What we're seeing is locally relevant payments generally equals more buyers. Makes sense, right? In Germany, buyers have grown 70% year over year since we introduced direct carrier billing and more recently PayPal. In Hong Kong, 80% growth year over year since we introduced gift cards and direct carrier billing. And in Russia, 100% year over year growth. So a lot of you are probably thinking, yeah, but the platform's growing too. And that's right. Part of this is due to growth in users, but what we're seeing is the number of buyers is actually growing much faster than the number of users. So again, this is something that we're thinking very hard about. How do we make sure that everyone who's using the platform can potentially become a buyer? And so we talked about sort of some of the things that we're doing. We talked about how to think globally about your business. So what are some action tips for you guys? How can you use our platform to monetize product? So this is very basic. And it almost feels silly to put up here, but developers do this poorly all the time. So I wanted to reiterate it. First thing, make sure your app is discoverable to users no matter where they are. So the very first thing is your title is very, very important, right? So you want a short, clear title. And there's two things that you should focus on. So the first is branding, and the second is clarity. And the reason for this is when you think about the two types of searches in the store, what do you see? You see direct search, right? So someone searches for Chrome, or they search for SeatGeek. But other times there's a keyword search. It's a categorical search, right? They search for something like browser, or maybe they search for event tickets. Both of these should be in your title. So if you're a radio app, say so in your title. If you are, a browser, make sure you say so in your title. And when you look at the apps that perform best, this is generally the best practice that they use. The second thing to think about is you have very limited real estate as a developer to convince a user to download your app, right? They go to your description and they make a snap judgment about whether or not they should install your app or install someone else's. So you want to make sure that you hit on these next three things. So you want a very clear description, right? You want to explain what the app does, and you want to do that very clearly and concisely. And then second, if you want any awards or there are any signs of credibility for users, make sure you include that as well. The third and the fourth elements here, high-res screenshots and video previews, are actually very important, and we have data to back this up. Generally, we see apps with more screenshots across different devices, as well as video previews, are highly correlated with higher quality apps, and users subconsciously process this, right? If you're a user in the store, and you go to an app landing page and there's one screenshot, you're probably going to think that it might not be the highest quality app. You're probably right. So make sure that you nail all four of these. These are easy things you can do to improve your discoverability in the store. So the second piece of this is, okay, you focused on your landing page, you focused on making a great title. What about in other markets? So localizing listings is a very important best practice. You see 6x sales for apps that localize their listings. Pocket, if you guys are looking for an example, that does a great job of this. It's very important to speak the language of your users, right? So we actually have tools within the developer console that will help you do translation services. Essentially what we did is we took all the translation services that we as Google use, and we opened them up to developers. So you can do this for both things like your description and your title, but also for the content within your app. And if you have questions about that, come see me afterwards. Third, pricing. So this is a really interesting example. There's a really cool button within the developer console that allows you to take one currency and translate it to any other currency, right? And it works really well, and it works across dozens of different currencies. And so while this is really good to have consistent pricing across markets, what it's not good for is a good user experience. So you've all heard of the 99 cents effect, right? So there are some prices which seem like they're a bargain, even though it's a very similar price point to maybe $1.00, right? And so we did a study and we said, what happens when users in other markets see prices that look unusual to them? So in Japan, for example, 100 yen is very similar to 99 cents in the US. And so we looked at apps that were priced at exactly 100 yen, and we compared them to apps that were just under or just over 100 yen. And what we found was sales for apps with precise local pricing sold twice as well as those that don't. It's interesting, right? So, but I think when you put yourself in the user's shoes, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you were in the store right now and you saw an app that was on sale for $1.04, that would seem suspicious, right? You might be more likely to buy the app that was on sale for 99 cents instead. Fourth, localize your business model. So different markets spend money in different ways and monetize in different ways. So in some markets, ads really are the best way to monetize, even though I think in a lot of cases, mobile ads still leave a lot to be desired, right? In-app purchases in some markets are the best way to monetize. In another market, subscriptions work really well. Users don't want to have to think about continually buying goods. They just want to pay at the end of the month and be done with it. So there's one thing that I didn't mention on that last slide. So we talked about ads, we talked about in-app purchases, we talked about subscriptions. One thing I didn't talk about was paid apps. And most of you guys are probably aware of this, but I just want to reiterate it for a second. Most top grossing apps are free. So the apps that make the most money in the store are no longer paid apps. I think 3 or 4 years ago, you would have seen the paid apps did a lot better. It's not really the case anymore. So the first paid app, if you look at our top grossing apps on Android, is Minecraft, which is number 43 on the top grossing list. And Minecraft, of course, is a great game. It's an iconic brand. But still, it only hits number 43. And then if you look further and you look at the top 100 grossing apps on the store, Minecraft is still the only paid app that's a top 100 grossing app. So the lesson here is you want to offer users content and you want to offer them some kind of value before you ask them to pay. And so this actually translates very well to other parts of the app. So I didn't want to talk too much about design. I didn't want to talk too much about development today because you guys have heard a lot about that. But this is something that even great developers don't do a particularly good job of. Put content forward. So whether you're a paid app or whether you're not, don't require registration up front. Definitely don't require credit card information up front. Let users get a taste for your app before you ask them to pay or before you ask them to log in. So this is something that's very, very important. When you look at engagement metrics, the apps that do a good job of this have much higher engagement and generally are able to take that install and turn it into an active user. New York Times is a great example of this. So they offer a 7-day free subscription. Users can come in and they can get a taste for the content of the app before they're asked to pay. So just very quickly on the topic of subscriptions here. This is something that we rolled out only 2 years ago. Subscription sales are growing very quickly. Can't share the exact numbers, but the numbers are good. And there's 2 features in case you guys are interested that I just quickly want to touch on. So one is seasonal subscriptions. So for sports leagues, this is very important, right? You can imagine there's the season and there's a lot of activity, and you might want to ask users to pay. But during the off season, there's not as much activity, right? So not quite as important. Weekly subscriptions, again, allow users to get a taste of the app without asking them maybe to pay a yearly fee. There are other things like goodwill credits, which you can give the app away if something goes wrong, and a few other features that we added as well. Check out Developer Ready for the questions. So 5th thing, focus on quality. It seems intuitive, right? But the correlation is very, very strong between high quality apps and those that monetize well. So if you take a 4-star app and you compare it to an app that's between 3 and 4 stars, you'll see that the 4-star app monetizes 4 times as well as those that are 3 to 3.9 stars. And then if you take that a step further and you look at apps that are rated 2 to 2.9 stars, they only monetize 1/9 as well as apps that are rated 3 to 3.9 stars. So intuitive, but it's actually a very, very strong correlation. And in the end, quality always wins. So last thing, apps designed for tablets monetize 2 times better than those with phones. So in the past, we've talked about engagement on tablets. Engagement on tablets is higher than phones. Purchases on tablets are about twice that they are on phones. So when you're thinking about building an app for the first time, keep this in mind, right? Think about responsive design. Use fragments. Make sure that you support multiple orientations. And when you're thinking about testing on tablets, 7 and 10 inch screens are generally the right way to go. So think of this as a growth vector, right? I think in 2013, the third-party figures that came out, 2/3 of tablets that shipped were Android tablets. For each of those tablets, you're getting twice the bang for your buck as you do for a phone. So just a very quick recap here. So think beyond familiar markets. Localize your business models, your prices, your languages, and the app experience itself. And continue to focus on quality and other growth vectors like tablets and new form factors like Android Wear and Android TV. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to George. And George is going to give you some really cool case studies of great apps that have turned into great global businesses.
Thanks, Kevin. Hey guys, so my name is George and I also work on the Play business development team here in New York. So Kevin did a good job showing you how Google is investing in the platform when it comes to globalization and seamless payments. He also showed you practical tips that you can use on a day-to-day basis to transfer your app into a successful business. What I'm going to do right now is show you 5 case studies of developers just like you from around the world who have used these tips and who monetize really well and have done a really good job at converting non-payers into first-time buyers. So let's go through that. So through these examples right now. We're going to talk about 5 examples from around the world. Here in the US, we have Evernote and Noom. On the app side, we're going to move east and talk about Mediocre and Playtika in Europe. And finally, in Japan, we're going to talk about smart education. So all of these apps and games are trying to do some first-time buyer to pay for the app or to pay for the game. They each have very different monetization strategies, and they have different business models, but one common element is that they were all successful at encouraging that first-time payer. In the case of our subscription-based services on the left, we have Evernote, which is really about this long-term engagement between the user and the app. We're going to talk about Noom, which is great at offering seasonal promotions. Then we're going to talk about Smart Education, who have transitioned their model from a paid app to free subscription, to free trial feeding subscriptions. On the game side, we're going to talk about an indie developer called Mediocre, who are all about building a trusted brand. And finally, Playtika are the pioneers in customer segmentations, and we're going to talk about how they did their various segments to reach uplift in revenue and conversions. Let's start off with Evernote. So this very happy CEO here is the CEO of Evernote, Phil Levin. He definitely has a reason to be smiling because his service is used today by over 100 million users worldwide. I'm sure you all know Evernote. It's a suite of productivity apps. They have a pretty bold mission, and it says, remember everything. They want their users to get involved with Evernote on a day-to-day basis and transfer more and more of their life into their app. They are pretty confident that the more you use their service, with time you will convert into a premium subscriber, and rightly so. I will show you some figures that really show how, with time, the more you engage with the app, the more you become dependent on it, the more likely you are to subscribe. Let's look at this amazing hockey stick graph over here, which shows payer conversion as a function of years of using Evernote. Most people, everyone downloads the app, they're in the first month of use, almost no one converts. They see less than 0.5% conversion rates to premium. And why is that? You just downloaded the app, you're just getting used to it, there's not much value you're getting out of it yet. But as you use it more and more on a day-to-day basis, you get more dependent on it. Your life and your experiences become stored on the app, and it becomes harder to let go. Hence, a year later, 7% of active users convert. After 2 years, well, those who are still using the app, 11% of them convert. 5 years down the line, active subscribers are 25% premium subscribers. And this is huge. Like a quarter of your active user base is paying for your product on a monthly basis. This is fantastic. Evernote always talks about the perception of user value over time. They believe that as user value increases over time, users will become more and more willing to pay. This concept of perception of user value is very important, and I would ask each and every one of you to try to bring it in your apps. Try to build in features and functionalities that increase the perception of value on a day-to-day basis on your app. Do you see the sandwich? I'm not sure if you're hungry or not, it's almost getting dinner time, but this sandwich is exactly the opposite of what Evernote is trying to do. This sandwich will maximize its user value in 5 minutes. Just when it's out of the oven, it's crunchy, it's delicious. If you see the sandwich 5 years down the line, you don't want to eat it. It's gross, it's soft, it's moist, you probably die if you eat it. So make sure that your app is similar to Evernote, not to that sandwich. Create services that only increase perception of value over time, and that, unlike the sandwich, don't just disintegrate after 5 minutes. So let's move on to Noom. If you eat a lot of these sandwiches that I just showed you, you'll probably need Noom, because Noom helps you lose weight. So Noom is a New York City-based startup which has done really, really well, they promise to help you lose weight through their service. Now, interestingly, we all think of losing weight at very specific periods of time in the year. Before the summer, after Christmas, when the holiday season, we have the belly coming out of the holiday season. So these guys at Noom have realized that there is a much higher throughput at the top of the funnel at these specific times of the year, before the summer, after the holidays, etc. So they want to capitalize on that on that awareness and the traffic that's driving into their app, and that's when they offer promotions. A few months ago, if you were a user of Noom, you would have received a notification in your app saying, hey, there's 50% off. You would have received an email saying there's 50% off. And then a few days later, you would have received an app reminder saying, hey guys, 50% off. It's sales season, it's a season of new beginnings, subscribe with us. This summer sale promotion was extremely effective at driving conversions for Noom. If we look at their revenues during that promotion, we see 2 spikes. The first is when the email was sent out. The second was when the reminder was sent out. This promotion drove 3 times more revenue per day for Noom. Think about it, this is tremendous. They're driving triple their revenue just through a promotion. Now obviously you can't run promotions every day, it's not sustainable for a business model. But if you can really find those sweet spots where your users are more and more flowing into your app, I would suggest that you go for something similar where you capture this inflow and convert them into a paying user. Similarly, with Noom, they have a lot of data. So they ran some analysis around the success of their service towards premium subscribers versus regular subscribers. And they realized that people who subscribe to Noom lose twice as much more weight as just the regular subscribers. And they really surfaced these results on a frequent basis within the app. They use data to generate better results and to convince that user which is not 100% convinced to actually make the transaction. So take away from Noom, use promotions whenever you have high traffic on your app, and 2, use data to surface interesting results for your users. Let's move to Tokyo. This is Akaya-san, the CEO of Smart Education. Smart Education are an app developer which do apps for children's education. Just like many of the game developers, they were a paid premium service up front, so they were a paid game. Recently they pivoted into a freemium model where they offer weekly, monthly subscriptions, and and they offer a free trial period at the beginning, just very much like some of the tips that Kevin mentioned earlier today. They did some experiments that realized that a 1-week free trial is the most effective at getting users to try out their games. But now after you have the user try the game, you have to convert them to a paid user. So what they've done is they've broken the purchase flow into 2 steps. First step is, let's get you to download the app and to sign up for a free trial. Step 2, once your free trial expires, let's get you to convert to a premium service. Just think of how different this is to their old model. Initially, they wanted you to pay without even seeing the app, pay up front and start using. Now they want you to download for free, try for free, enjoy it, and then pay. It's a massive pivot, but it's been extremely successful. If you look at the chart on the left, 8% of installs actually subscribe to the free trial. So they said, you know what, I'm going to try this out for a week. When the trial ended, 60% of those 8% converted to paid. So more than half of the people who tried out the trial became premium subscribers. If you do the math, that's a 5% conversion rate, which I'm sure if there are developers here with subscription services, you'll realize that that's a pretty good number. If you can achieve a 5% conversion rate on a recurrent subscription, a week after a user downloads your app, then you're doing something right. Alright, one more thing about these guys. It was not a one-hit wonder. They actually converted all their games from paid to freemium subscription. If you look at this chart, 5 of the top 10 education games in Japan are smart education games. So they were able to replicate that across their portfolio. How many of you are indie developers in the room? Okay, quite a few. So you will relate to the story. These guys are the co-founders of Mediocre. Mediocre is a games company based in Sweden, and they do a really cool game called Smash Hit. These guys, I mean, they're a team of 2, right? They don't have the resources, the analytics, the bandwidth that an EA or a Supercell has, like the big game developers. So they said, you know what, we're not going to focus on heavy analytics. We're going to focus on really creating a trusted brand, a fun game that people can relate to, and most importantly, we want to have a game that people can tell their friends about and share with their friends. They wanted to create a viral element. They wanted to create a word of mouth that really drives trials of that game. Initially, they had 2 separate games. One was free and one was paid. And it was a pretty awkward basically connection between the 2. So if you played the free game and then you decide to buy the upgraded one, whatever you had achieved in the free game in terms of levels or whatever currencies you had accumulated would not translate to the upgraded version. So it wasn't a good flow. So what they've actually done is reinvent the game to make it freemium. And it's totally free until you start playing. So in this case, I was playing the game for about 15-20 minutes. I got to level 7, I was very happy with my performance. Suddenly I died. I get really angry, I've been playing for 20 minutes, all of this is just gone to waste. But hey, savior, I get a pop-up saying, hey, you know what, why don't you save all your gameplay and all your achievements? In order to do that, you have to upgrade to a premium subscription. At that point in time, I'm weak, I'm vulnerable, I'm angry. I'm willing to just tap that button. Luckily, it was only a $2 charge, so I paid $2 and I saved my gameplay and I became a premium subscriber just through this really well-timed notification. This pretty moderate or modest fee, they were able to convert me. Let's look at how they done on the charts. So the blue line is their performance on the top 3 ranks. These guys made it to number 1, ahead of Candy Crush, for multiple weeks. They went down to 2 or 3, then went back to 1. On the grossing chart, they made it to chart 57, which is pretty good, given they only charge $2 a day. So the takeaway here, even if you don't have robust analytics behind you, make sure that you can understand where your users are most keen to get involved and convert your games and offer a service that's pretty appealing to them. Finally, my last case study for today is around Playtika. Playtika is another game developer based in Tel Aviv. These guys are the pioneers and the leaders in customer segmentation. What they've done is, when they first started a few years ago, they didn't have any customer segmentation. So they tracked basic metrics, engagement, frequency of play, number of crashes, just normal metrics that any developer would track. As they evolved, they moved into what they call basic customer segmentation. With the basic customer segmentation, they had two groups, payers versus non-payers. For the non-payers, they used to send email marketing over the weekend, saying, hey, there's a promotion over the weekend, go for it, subscribe, etc. Very basic, very similar to some of the examples we were talking earlier. As their business intelligence evolved and they started tracking more and more parameters, they were able to move to advanced segmentation and even hyper-segmentation. What they mean here is they were able to track specific gameplay parameters. How long you play, how frequent you play, which level do you achieve, how often do you come back, etc. And based on all these different parameters, they came up with very niche segments of customers, and they could target micro promotions to these specific segments. They could change the gameplay for these specific segments. They could send out specific notifications for these specific segments. So they went from not tracking anything to being able to offer dedicated micro promotions to small segments of customers. What did that mean? What did that do to their revenue and conversions? They saw a 30% uplift in first-time payer conversions, and that was directly correlated to the customer segmentation they did. On the revenue side, they saw a 50% increase in revenue, and that was also primarily driven by these dedicated targeted promotions they were able to offer their niche customer segments. So, lots of lessons, lots of very, very interesting work that developers are doing, lots of strategies. Hopefully, between our investment in the platform, some of the tips that Kevin mentioned, and some of the learnings that these developers are giving us, you will be able to create successful businesses on Play. And next year, I'm going to see your logos on that map, and you will be sharing some of the stuff you've done to create a successful business on Google Play. Thank you. So we have about 5 more minutes, so Kevin and I will just hang around here.
3 questions. We'll also be off stage afterwards if anyone wants to talk about them.
How can you use this to create friction for an application that's not
I don't know if we don't have a perfect answer for that. I think overall it depends on the specific demographic of the users that you're targeting. And it also depends on the type of content. Subscriptions are better for something where content will be refreshed regularly on an ongoing basis. In-app purchases are better for if a user's trying to unlock one specific piece of content, say in a game, or trying to unlock one specific game.
So subscriptions, think music, think newspapers, think video, content that, as Kevin is saying, is constantly updated, and you want to have more of a all-you-can-eat model, versus in-app purchases is more like on the spot and on the slides. Yeah, Evernote is something very key to coming using all the time.
Any other questions? Yeah. It's a good question. I think, so first of all, I think that this is something that we see across platforms. I think on iOS they've announced similar figures, right? Generally tablets just they can work better. We see that more e-commerce behavior tends to occur on tablets for whatever reason. It's more of a lean-back experience. It's more an experience where you can look at full, rich, immersive images. But yeah, there's no specific answer, but it's something that we've seen not just on Google but on iOS as well.
we actually got that's something.
Yeah, yeah. It's so for that, I'll give you my email, and then I'll put you in touch with our policy and our training folks. I don't know the specifics of that. I know that there are very specific uses around when you can use Android. But I'm happy to work with you on that.
Okay, and I also have one other question. Is there any plans to add capability to when I was doing a lot of testing, we were able to add a big inventory, and then when you do a test transaction, you can do a test account, you go through, you tag, and you can cancel. So if you're paying for refund it, or vice versa, or refunding the boat, you still couldn't do a purchase again because the subscription is still valid. And there's no way to delete that. So I have, basically when I'm done testing, I had a whole bunch of users that are active. That I can't delete. It just seems like a lot of changes anyway.
And you can use the Google credits for some of this testing as well. So what we mentioned about the Google credits as being some sorts of kind of payment that you use for either for users if they crash or want to give them something in return, but you can also use them for testing purposes. But again, we can take some of these things.
That's actually, I mean, it's great feedback too, and that's what we're happy to take that.
Yeah, really the question was if I could do it any better way.
And so I think subscriptions are still a decent product for us. So I think we only launched them like 2 years ago. Weekly subscriptions are just launched.
Yeah,
so there's still a little building that we're
wonderful.
That's good feedback.
Yeah, I'm just curious on, since I know you guys feature some apps, like what's the process for like getting featured? Like how does that affect sales?
The process for getting features?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely take that offline. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
So overall, if you, what we like to see in general are apps that are built really, really well, right? So high performance is the first. Pure Android design is very important. Supporting multiple device types and form factors is very important. Supporting landscape and portrait. If you look at online, there are some resources. Our core quality guidelines are like a good overview of things that we think about when we go through the feature process. I'm happy to talk more about the process. And yeah, I think
We're going to be here, so come talk to us.
we have less than a minute left. So please come find us off stage. Guys, thank you so much. I think on behalf of the Android team, please keep pushing the envelope, keep building great apps, and thank you guys for listening.